My name is Ben Hollinger, and this is my God story. So I grew up as a pastor's kid, and I always grew up around the church and like doing missions and going on mission trips with my dad. And one thing that was always very important to him was, us going out and like spreading our faith to others. There was one person in particular I was really trying to work with on my soccer team when we moved out here. So I was around 12, 13. And it was a kid my dad knew kind of the family. His extended family went here, and his father had took his own life when he was very young, and he'd always had some kind of issues with that. And so I started ministering to him, started bringing him to church, and we became very good friends. He would come hang out at our house like before practices and after games and that kind of thing. We became very close. And he would come to an event we went with youth group every year called Kalahari, which is a 3-day winter retreat at a giant water park. So that's a big appeal to kids. Hey, come with me to this giant water park for 3 days and we'll learn about Jesus. And our freshman year in high school, so we'd known each other for about 4 years at that point. He had been coming to church with me for a while and ministering, and me and my youth pastor, my dad, and several other people had been talking to him. We were just really hoping he would accept Christ at this event, and he finally did, and we just, it was amazing, just that we had that final joy. And we got back from the events on Sunday, and next Monday we had off school. And he texted me that day and said that one of his friends, who was a junior at our high school, had taken his own life as well. And that was really hard for him. I saw him a good amount the next couple of weeks, and it was he would say he was okay, but he wasn't okay, if that makes sense. So not the following Sunday, but the Sunday after that, I was at a indoor soccer practice. We were prepping for a tournament we had coming up with our high school team, and he didn't come to practice that day. And when I got out of practice, I had a text from one of my friends saying he was missing and nobody could find him. And he'd asked if he'd come to church with me that day, and he hadn't. So I tried calling him, he didn't answer. I tried calling again, he didn't answer. So I finally called my friend who texted me and was like, hey, I don't know where he is. And his dad picked up the phone, and he said, I need to talk to your dad. And my dad had just picked me up from practice, so I handed him the phone. And as soon as I handed him the phone, I knew what happened. It was just, it hadn't contemplated yet, but I knew. And he said a couple words and hung up, and he looked at me, and he told me that he had taken his own life. And that was hard to handle. I don't remember the rest of the car ride home. I just cried the whole time. We went to his aunt's house. She attended our church, and his cousins were there, and they were really young. And it was hard to watch them register what had happened. And it brought up a lot of questions for me with my faith and my journey. I was a freshman. I was 15. He was only 14, which is just insanely young. And I was just mad. I didn't understand. I didn't get how that could happen. I didn't know a lot about depression or how that affected people. And I didn't understand what the turnaround could be, how this could be a positive thing, or why God would allow that to happen or something that tragic to happen. When we were at his funeral, my youth pastor Matt did the funeral, and I talked with him a lot during that week, and he had spent most of the day he died with me. So we had been talking a lot, and one of the things they wanted to do was an altar call at the funeral, because that's how Ethan had accepted Christ that 2 weeks ago at the Kalahari event. And that moment, I think, is the biggest moment I've ever seen God. There was a few hundred people at the funeral. It was right here in this chapel. And about 100 different people from our community, students from our high school, students from our junior high, teachers, parents, walked up and accepted Christ that day. And that was a moment where I realized, man, this could be turned into something positive, even though it's something like so tragic and something I didn't understand, but it can still be like used for God's work. The other thing is just really it brought our like communities together. He was involved with a lot of things, I was involved with a lot of things. We had their Young Life organization at our high school, got very involved and was trying to help people. And we would have Young Life Bible studies at our house, so we were having people over to talk about it. He was on our soccer team, so that affected like a lot of us, but like our coaches were always checking up on us, teammates were checking up on us. As I think back on it, I think one of the most like important messages to come out on this is that no one is immune to this. Everyone has either like suffered from it or knows people who suffered from it, and there's very few people who haven't been at some point in their life. And I think just as a community, like one of the most important things is like talk about this with your kids, talk about issues with other people, talk about how this has affected you, get it out. Don't like hold that kind of stuff in, because then you just suffer from it yourself. One of the biggest things that helped me through like this and like helped my friends through this was just our sense of like community with each other, and that helps build friendships. And they say like tragedy brings people closer, and I think that's very true. But yeah, and in hindsight, it was something very tragic and very like terrible, but there was a lot of good that came out of it because of my sense of like because I was able to like work with people and share with people, and because like I had that foundation, and I think that's important for everyone.